Hello there, Aaron Sanders, this Agile guy. Today, I'm joined by my fellow CST, Lee Henson, founder and president of AgileDad.
Hey,
Hello,
Aaron, how's it
Lee.
going?
Great. How are you today?
Man, if I were doing any better, I'm doing better than a Kardashian doing a crossword puzzle. I am doing outstanding. Life is good.
Glad to hear that. What's some of the really great things going on in your life?
You know, it's the holidays, so I want to start off by saying something, and I mentioned this in some of the literature that I posted out about this session. I want to wish everybody out there a happy Christmas, Adam. Many people may not be familiar with that term, but it's one of those things where Adam came before Eve, and since tomorrow's Christmas Eve, today must be Christmas Adam. It just makes sense that way. So happy Christmas, Adam, everybody. So with that being said, some of the things that are hot that I'm having going on right now, it's one of those things where things are slowed down a little bit, because of the holiday, which is good. But overall, I would say it's been exciting. We've had a lot of large companies that have reached out that are asking strong agile questions. The big thing that's really been driving lately has been the daily Standup Podcast. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out, but we've had a lot of inquiry and a lot of questions that have been coming in for that from various viewers. So if any of you viewers out there now have questions or topics that you want to talk about, this is your chance. You got two world-class CSTs here. Hit us up. Give us those questions. We'd love to hear those. So yeah, things have been exciting from the Agile realm. What about on your neck of the woods, Aaron? Anything good?
Let's look in. I'll say good morning. Maybe. Good morning.
Let's tell everybody good morning.
Any questions?
Absolutely.
And we'll check in on that every so often. See how
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll have crowd building soon. I know it's still early for some folks, especially on the West Coast. So I thank all those from the West Coast who are joining us. But I'm coming to you from beautiful sunny Florida, where I'm freezing to death because the temperature has gone below 70 degrees. So I have a sweater behind me I know it's one of those things. So cold.
I think when I woke up, it was 10. And now it's a balmy 20.
There you go.
I'm a little envious.
I was about to say it's almost warm enough for you to, almost shorts weather, right?
Almost. Yeah. It's nice if it gets to 32 and then shorts, flip-flops, no problem.
There you go. Good answer. I wish I could handle that. No, but things have been just so crazy, Aaron. I mean, the new Scrum guide's out. There's been a lot of guidance. I guess starting off with an Agile topic real quick, something that we can throw out there. A lot of people are up in arms about this new Scrum guide. I personally read the whole thing. It's pretty short. It's pretty easy read. It's not like the PMBOK. And it was one of those things where I didn't see that much polarizingly different. But one of the big changes I saw was them doing away with 3 questions. So I guess I'll start off that conversation with you, with regard to the daily stand-up. I have some insight, having been trained, and coached by Ken, that those 3 questions were never there originally. But how do you feel about that change, or how do you think that's going to impact the Agile community?
I like the less prescriptive approach in the guide itself, and have always been a little troubled by the 3 questions, because it's like, you report, tell me, what did you do? What are you doing? Do you have a problem? You report, you tell me now. And I've always asked teams, how do you want me as a Scrum Master to kick this off? If so, how do we prompt and come up with our plan for the next 24 hours? And then let them come up with whatever questions or however they want to discuss that has always been my approach. So I'm glad, I guess.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's one of those things where I remember originally, well, the whole reason behind, or the logic behind why those 3 questions came to be anyway. What did you do today? Or what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Do you have any impediments? That was all designed by leadership to try to turn this meeting more into a status report, to get that shift, so that people could have one meeting they could go to and get that status. And it disappointed me from the very beginning, because one of the things that I emphasized when I taught students was that, or when I did coaching, was that, I don't really care what you did yesterday. What I care more about is, did you finish the things that you committed to? Were you accountable? Did you do the things that you said you were going to do? Right? If something did come up That's what I need to know. I need to know if something came up that took you outside of what you were originally planning to do. That way we can better work together and figure out, hey, is this an acceptable interruption? Is it something that needs to be addressed? What happened that interrupted your workday? And I think that the third question kind of encapsulated that, but it was never, do you have any impediments? That I
Mm.
remember Ken explicitly saying, if you're going to ask that kind of question, and this was later at a conference, he said, if you're going to ask that kind of question, a question should really be, if you have an impediment, why'd you wait until right now to tell us about it? Because I
Nice.
think that there's, yeah, because I mean, you should be reporting impediments as they happen, right? So doing away with those three questions, I feel, was one of the best things that could have ever happened, right? I feel like it gave the team back the power, like you said, to make critical choices and to work together and to become more high performing.
I agree. I've always asked people to say something interesting. If you don't have that, feel free to pass on yesterday, today, whatever. If you have something interesting, let's talk. And it could be, I did this super great thing yesterday. You should check it out. Or I could use your help today, Lee, on some refactoring. Something that everybody's here listening. Let's make sure that's a healthy, interesting conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that was the original intent anyway, right? And I think that many people will take the original intent of things and thwart it to be something that I don't know, that puts them in a position where they feel like they can be more the master of ceremonies. I mean,
Mhm.
there's nothing worse than going to the daily stand up and hearing, a Scrum Master take over and say, they put on their glitter jacket, what I'm talking about, and they get the bedazzled microphone out, like, hey, everybody, we'd like to welcome you all to Daily Stand-Up. We're so glad you could be here today. So tell me, Aaron, what did you work on yesterday? And now, what did you work on today? And do you have any impediments? Our next guest is going to be Tanya. Oh, my goodness.
Right. Come on down. What did I win?
Exactly.
You have to talk now.
It's just amazing to me, and that's just it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, every meeting has a purpose. And I think that if you learn that the purpose behind some of these meetings is to help you get into a rhythm, to help you get into a flow, to help you get to high performing, to drive you and the organization in a specific direction, without having to be prodded or pushed, that this should be self-initiated, and that through team alignment, you'll start to see these things. That's going to help you come a long way. And I think that people just miss that message sometimes.
This little meeting, the heartbeat of it all. And getting it right, a little more difficult than people might imagine. And do you have a favorite article or video explaining what a good stand-up looks like? We can put it in the comments afterwards.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm curious to hear from everybody else too. So if there's anybody out there watching live, or if you're not live, if you're watching this video after the fact, go ahead and put in the comments if you have one. What I can tell you is we have, there are tons of videos out there to talk about this. For me, I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite. I often turn to Heinrich Nieberg and some of his Spotify videos to talk about, forming tribes and the way that they organize and talk to each other on a daily basis. I'll refer to Mike Cohn has a white paper with a little blog post about it as well. So there's lots of good stuff out there. Are you getting some questions there, Aaron?
Mr. Nyan is asking, should we jump right in? Yes.
Absolutely. What you got? While we're entertaining his question, I'll go ahead and say this. One of the things about me that I didn't tell you, Aaron, just so that the audience is careful too, is I have a psychology-based background. So what that means is I absolutely have no filter. So I just want to make sure people understand, if you're out there and you're going to ask a question, this is your chance to, we could have called this, Agile Unfiltered, because I am going to answer any question that anybody asks with zero filter. So if they have a question, as long as they keep it 30 seconds or less, somewhere in that PG-13 range, anything from Disney to Deadpool, like we were describing before, I'm wide open to answer these questions, and I'm sure you are too. But I'd love to hear some of these questions, because I know we're going to have an audience that's going to throw them out there. So,
well, it looks like we have how to convince the team these meetings are valuable. I think just beyond stand up, all of the events and Scrum, some might think it's a waste of time. I can use this time to work alone or do something else. Why are we together doing this, Lee?
You know, and that is probably one of the most popular questions that I get in training. And this is a symptom. So I want to make sure this is clear. Sometimes you'll hear me say that, being a Scrum Master or being a good Agile coach is a lot like being a doctor because you're going to be asked to listen to a lot of symptoms. So people are going to have problems, they're going to have symptoms, and they're going to tell you all of their various symptoms. And your job is going to be to listen to the symptoms, diagnose what the real problem is, and then write a prescription. But the key, Aaron, when you write the prescription, is that the team has to decide to go to the pharmacy and get that prescription filled and then take it according as instructed. So it's their opportunity to decide what they want to do. But to directly answer this question specifically regarding meetings, the answer there is that this is a symptom. What it's a symptom of is that meetings have been abused in the past. Either they've been driven and directed instead of facilitated so that the team didn't have the power to start and end a meeting when they needed to, that people have been long-winded or that meetings have taken a lot longer than they should have, or that there's been no real structure around how the meeting should be organized. One of the things that Aaron mentioned just a few minutes ago, this little meeting, the daily stand-up, is the heartbeat of every other meeting and helps drive all the other meetings' focus. I 100% agree. What ends up happening is if you get this meeting right, it in turn makes all of your other meetings shorter. It tightens up the time frame. You can make sure you have the right participants and the right topics available. We put together something called an Agile Meetings Playbook. It's available for free. Usually it's part of AgileDad University, but right now that's available for free. So I encourage you to go download it. And it literally goes through each meeting by name, tells you who's required, who's optional, about how long the meeting should take, inputs and outputs. So it gives you just this baseline. Now, it's not saying that it's totally prescriptive, but it's saying, hey, if you follow these guidelines or if you use this as a framework, that it's going to help you ensure that your meetings flow a lot better and that the team feels encouraged. Because the truth is, no meeting takes longer than an hour, and collectively, all of your meetings, collectively, for an entire 2 week sprint, should never take more than 6 hours away from you total. And that includes retrospective sprint planning, everything. So if you think about it that way, between your demo, your review, your retrospective, your daily stand-ups, if you add it all together, it's not going to be longer than 6 hours. For a 2 week sprint, that's 3 hours a week. So that's not a whole lot to ask to have some level of coordination. And I like what you mentioned earlier, Aaron. Do you want to talk for a minute about when you were bringing up the XP background and how teams just sort of coordinated each day and didn't necessarily have the formality around it? Do you want to mention that again? Because I thought that was real good information as well.
Sure, you bet. When I started extreme programming, this was back 2002, 2003, when everybody rolled in during core hours, we would have a quick discussion about, so what are we up to today, everybody? And then depending on where the passion was driven, we would initiate with our first pairs with whatever we kicked off with. And we rotated pairs every 2 hours or so. And when we rotated, we literally stood up and wandered around, and somebody would stay on the problem and somebody new would join them. And then there would be another quick, all right, what's the plan for this pair combination? So we wound up with many little stand-ups during the day and evolving the plan during the day, but at no time were we yesterday, today, and dragging through it like a status meeting. And I think something else
Right.
you said, Lee, about the coordinated work, that's really what it's about too, is we're taking around 6 hours. It's not just a meeting, it's working together and coordinating the work. And then finally, when you're talking about with inputs and outputs and who attends and purpose, I always think about spirit of the game, which is one of the patterns in the Scrum pattern library. And if we understand the intention, yeah, it's a lot. I would rather not just follow the prescription letter of the law, but understand the spirit behind it and go with that. And then I'll put this back in case you want to say something back.
No, that's beautiful. That was exactly what I hoped you'd mention. And like I said, why mention the doctor writing a prescription? Notice I didn't say it was prescriptive. It was up to the teams and up to their guidance to get that prescription filled into follow the instructions. So it's up to them how they apply it still, which is valuable. That way it
Yeah.
adds value to everybody.
So look, Jonathan is glad the 3 questions are gone. Had a Scrum
Here, here.
Master expecting to ask them. and reporting to. Yeah, very managery. And then Vinayan. I'm sorry, I can't always get names right.
By win.
And
By win. It's win.
is how to avoid being pushed to do project manager job when being a Scrum Master. Where do we draw the line?
I don't know that there's necessarily a line to be drawn. Now, let me be clear here, because this is going to send everybody into a tailspin. Here we go. This is where we're going to start the controversial Agile topic.
Whoa,
I, as a certified Scrum trainer, here we go. I, as a certified Scrum trainer, I'm about to say that I still feel like the PMP, project management professional, is a gold standard of project management. That there are still things that you use from that credential. I'm not saying every formula is important. I'm not saying that every single thing that's in there that you have to follow to PMBOK as prescriptive as it is. What I am saying is that if you look at some of the things that are in there regarding earned value, if you look at some of the things that are in there regarding risk assessment, if you look at some of the things that are in there regarding communication patterns, those things are incredibly important, and they're going to help drive you to be successful. So I don't know that you have to give up your project manager headband to become a good Scrum Master, right? I think that part of it can intertwine and become fabric of who you are and the fabric of how you communicate with your teams. I think the trouble is when you have to flip the switch, when you have one group that's completely going traditional project management plan driven, and you have another group that's going in a more agile fashion. Trying to jump back and forth is where you're going to have the most confusion. And I think that if you have to draw a line somewhere, the line would be around how well you organize the work. So here's my rule. My rule is always, if you have a choice between constantly organizing people and changing them up and switching them around and organizing the work, always go organize the work. If you can keep the people together as a high functioning team and let them swarm to get the work finished, you're always going to end up in a better situation than you would have if you were switching out people trying to find the best person to do the job. That's probably my best advice for where to draw the line.
I would paraphrase that. The line is, do you have a team? Watch for that and organize the work. And then maybe you'll see an outgrowth of more teaming and swarming because of the way the work is organized.
That sounds great. And it's a lot more eloquent than what I said.
Just compressing it. You do the log thing. I'll see if I can shorten it, and then it'll go the reverse too. I'm pretty sure. I'll go long-winded, and you can compress it for me. And
sounds good.
Thanks, Vidwin. I appreciate that. Being able to pronounce people's names, important. Let's see. Jonathan, do you think this will lead away from so many companies having that project manager / Scrum Master?
I don't know that it's going to go away. And I think part of the reason why it's not going to go away, and this is kind of strange, is because in this COVID world that we're in, I think that a lot of people are trying to save money. So what they're doing is they're taking, and I often talk about this during class, they'll take their most powerful individual, whether it's a developer, an architect, somebody, and they'll say, hey, Aaron, you're our star guy, so we need you 73% on this project, 21% on this project, 68% on this project, 54% on this project, and 19% on this project.
Yeah.
Somebody went to a community college and added that together, and that equals 100% of your time, right? So what ends up happening is you get this attitude that people can be stretched to the core. So what winds up happening here is you get somebody who, I'm manager of a company. Now, I've been CEO, CIO, and CTO of many different companies, EIEIO. I've earned all my letters. So with that being said, I want to go in and I want to budget right. And if I have someone that I can say, hey, you're a Scrum Master, and now, hey, you're also a project manager, and hey, you're also my release coordinator, and hey, you're also this, that saves me money. So in my eyes, that's a good thing, because now I can get that value out of that individual. Where in actuality, we all know that's not true, because in the words of Pete Fountain, the famous jazz artist, you would do every one of those things half-fast, HALF-FAST. So if you put it together, if you try to do all that at once, you would be doing it half-fast. So you don't want to,
that's enough. It might even be 1/4. I don't know if you even get to half.
That's true. But you're not doing anything well. You're doing a lot of things poorly. You're not doing anything well. And that's kind of when But I do see So a lot of people ask, and maybe this will be a question coming up, so I might be jumping ahead, but a lot of people ask, what happens to a project manager on an agile
Mhm.
project? So Aaron, I'm going to ask you first. I have an answer for this, but I'm curious to see what yours is. What happens to the traditional project manager on an agile project? Do they still exist? Do they take on different responsibilities? What happens to these people who are just rock stars as PMs? What do you do with them?
Yeah, I'm gonna take my monitor out so I can talk like a
Yeah, you're
human.
good.
Uh, I feel like the project management responsibilities are distributed quite a bit throughout the Scrum framework, and some of them disappear entirely. And I like the large scale Scrum approach on this and talk to Boss Fadi to promise job security, not role security. And given the strengths and talents people have, instead of doing role mapping, project manager to Scrum Master, etc., is do more of a strengths mapping and allow some lateral movement. And if somebody really wants to help build a team and make sure people are gaining mastery with Scrum, terrific, be a Scrum Master. If you want to instead maybe pay a little bit more attention to the financials and making sure we're getting return out and delivering high quality, high value product, great, be a product owner. Figure out where maybe you fit and go more towards the strengths and professional development that are important to you rather than trying to obtain a role.
I agree. One of the things that I've noticed too, I went about this with Alistair Coburn. So Alistair and I were taking a look at this, trying to figure out, if the project manager still existed, what would they do? And the way we broke it down, I said about 5% end up getting a promotion. So you take your top 5% and you promote them to be either a release or a portfolio manager, meaning that they're going to handle the bookend pieces that a lot of agile teams don't want to worry about. Are we financially ready? Are we legally compliant? Are we training ready? Do we have call center ready to answer the telephones? All those things that people on an agile Scrum team wouldn't worry about, right? If you're on an agile team or a Scrum team, you don't care about all that. But those are still things that need to be done in order to make sure the project holistically can be launched in many cases, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you take those people and you give them that promotion. So you take the best.
Mm-hmm.
10% end up successfully transitioning over to be Scrum Masters. What I can tell you is that the reason that number is so low is because it really is a different skill set. Someone who's a really good project manager doesn't always just slide right into the role of Scrum Master. There's definitely some difficulty with the way they handle issues or problems, the way they treat and talk to their teams, the way they interact, the way they behave. There's just a lot of friction there, I guess is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
65%, so this is the large majority, end up becoming part of the product ownership alignment. And what do I mean by that? So when I say product ownership alignment, there's still only one product owner. But one of the things I teach in every one of my classes is that a product owner is probably one of the most difficult jobs in the agile
Mm-hmm.
world. And that I feel like people need to have some help, some assistance. So the way it works is oftentimes I say, hey, you might want to lean on somebody. And I want to be careful because I agree with your sentiment about no title. But maybe someone who's operating in the role of maybe, I don't know, business analyst, someone who's got their thumb on the pulse of the consumer, someone who understands their wants, needs, whims, and desires, someone who meets with support to find out things they're struggling with trainers to find out what they're clamoring about, someone who hosts focus groups, someone who shadows and watches how people work so they can better understand the flow. Those are all incredibly important things. And I think that sometimes we overlook that input. A second input would be someone strategic. So someone from the business side of the house, maybe a functional analyst, who understands strategically what direction we're trying to drive our product or service, why we're trying to move in that direction, what value are we adding to the marketplace, who our target consumers are in the future, those kind of things. And then the third would be someone who realms from the technical side. So maybe a technical analyst. So affectionately, and a technical analyst, of course, is an architect or someone who understands, is this adding any kind of logistical technical value to what we have? Is it enhancing our infrastructure? Is it building out our architecture better? Is it allowing us to have better connectivity? What is it doing for us from a perspective technically, if it's a technical product or service? So if you weigh it out that way, what ends up happening, and I affectionately call this po bafata, product owner,
Okay,
business analyst,
I have to
functional
write that down.
analyst. So po bafata. So what happens is 65% of the people usually transition into one of those roles. What
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you is the majority of them either become POs or FAs, that's product owner or functional analyst, because that usually is a better fit for them.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, you have some people. So we had 65 there. We had 10 for Scrum Master, and we had 5. So for those of you who aren't keeping track, that's 80%.
Okay.
So far, so good.
So good.
So 10% end up in what I call genie or free. Have you watched the movie Aladdin?
Not for a while.
Okay, so in Aladdin spends his third wish on setting the genie free to let the genie go and do what he needs to do. So he's no longer required to be a genie. I think that sometimes we don't take into consideration how people became project managers. Somebody walks up to that powerful development team and says, "Hey, Aaron, I need one of you to be a project manager. 1, 2, 3, nose goes."
Yeah, exactly. Who was last?
Right. Who was last? You're the project manager. And then
Rats.
and now the best part is you're good at it, right? But every single day you're doing it, your will to live is slowly being sucked away, so that you hate what you do every single day. And finally somebody comes to you and says, "Aaron, what do you really want to do?" And it gives you a chance to back off and say, I want to be somebody. I want to be a developer. Okay, well, go be a developer then. Go do your thing, right? Genie, you're free. So that happens. And then the last 5%, of course, are the ones that you find in the restroom that morning, polishing the PMP lapel pin, on their hair with the ivory colored paper in their hands, because they're going to move on to another government job where they can practice their PMP skills. I hate to say it, but attrition is part of it. But yeah, so I think that there is actually a pattern for how these people transition. And it's interesting because it's not what you might expect, but there is a place for people with true project management skills in the Agile workflow. There's definitely a place there. It's just a matter of finding where they're most comfortable.
Agreed. I'll do card sorting. Tell me, Lee, what do you like about your job? Let's go through a day of your job and sort out actually what you like from what you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the things you like, where do those fit in these roles of Scrum, or the different attributes and responsibilities of those roles?
So, Aaron, I call these the real 3 questions. So the real 3 questions should be, and I tell Scrum Masters, or here's my rule. I tell people, if you're a brand new Scrum Master and you're trying to really make a good impression, at some point you should, and this isn't a planned meeting, this isn't something that you put on someone's calendar, but you should walk up to them and say, "Hey, Aaron, let's go for a walk." And then you should ask them, on Monday morning when you wake up, what is it you love the most about your job? What is it that drives you and gives you passion and makes you so excited to come to work every day? What do you love the most about what you do? Mm-hmm. Second question, separate, different time, separate question. Aaron, what is the thing that makes you wish you had an eternal snooze button, a Dr. Kevorkian button on your clock that you could press and never have to wake up again? Permanent snooze, right? What do you hate the most about what you do? What do you dread? What do you loathe? If we could do away with one thing off your plate, what would it be? Mm-hmm. And then the third one is, are you really happy doing what you're doing now? The exact question you asked. Let's do the card sort and see exactly where you are. And I think that if you're a good coach or a good Scrum Master, that those are the things you care about. You care about the people and their well-being. You care about the team. You care about what drives and motivates them. You care about them as individuals. You care about their culture. You care about diversity. You care about inclusiveness. You care about trying to get everybody on the same page. And I think that a lot of Scrum Masters struggle because they don't recognize that that's part of their responsibilities.
Agreed. And that's not part of the recipe. This goes beyond some rule of what you learn to be a Scrum Master, and looking more at individuals,
interactions.
Perhaps.
No,
see if we have other questions too.
Yeah, I often joke and say, yeah, it's not, and I dig on this book a little bit, but I often say, yeah, it's not on page 26 of Agile for Dummies, right? Here on page 26 of Agile for Dummies, it says,
I highlighted it.
Exactly. This is what we should be doing. If you're doing that, you're going to fail. You're destined for failure.
Yep. Would it drive the hiring manager away if you only have project manager experience? How to translate your experience into your first Scrum Master job? Mm-hmm. I think that's probably our next question.
Good question. So one of the things that I heavily promote, and a lot of people ask this, and this has been a hot topic because I was on LinkedIn, and I'll share this with you because this is pretty amazing. and I saw someone advertising. I'm sure you've seen these before. Earn your Scrum certification for only $19. That's right, $19. You can be Scrum certified. And the average entry-level Scrum job pays $119,000. So you can pay $19 and get a $119,000 job if you sign up today. But wait, there's more. If you sign up right now, you get a free ShamWow with every order. You know,
Is it under my chair?
and you get a ShamWow, and you get a ShamWow. It's just, and I'm just like, right?
Yeah.
But you know, honestly, the reason I bring this up is because I think that it's so incredibly important, especially with two Scrum trainers here to bring this up. The Scrum Alliance has done a fantastic job of vetting out the people who become certified Scrum trainers. They've done a fantastic job of looking at the materials and making sure we keep up with current learning objectives. They've done a fantastic job of just making sure that the right collective of individuals is there to provide world-class training, but more so than that, to become the fabric of the Scrum story. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but I tell people all the time that my job is to take the fabric of my story and intertwine it with the fabric of your story and create a beautiful tapestry called life so that you can learn from these life experiences and so that you can become better at what you do. So I often get people who come into my class and I often have people rate themselves. You know, I tell them, I need you to rate yourselves on a scale of your knowledge of Scrum and Agile on a scale of 1 to 10. If you just learned that it's pronounced Scrum and Agile, you're probably closer to the 1 side of the scale. If you could come up and teach the class, you're probably closer to the 10 side of the scale, and that will give me a nice warranted break. But you know, and and I get people who come in just like the questionnaire, who is closer to the 1 side of the scale, and I'm okay with that. I think that if you have a solid Scrum trainer who's going to guide you, but not just teach you what the book says, but help you really understand, you know, topically how these things apply. What can you do to fill your toolbox so that you can make a good impression? And that includes teaching you skills like what kind of things translate on your resume? How can I do a good interview? How can I, you know, put myself in front of someone and say, hey, you know, I don't have years of Scrum experience, but I'm definitely in a position where I understand exactly what I should be doing as a Scrum Master. And I'm willing to be flexible because I care about people. I care about individuals and interactions. What do I, you know, what kind of things can I do to press that forward? And we emphasize that quite a bit. We spend a whole module in our 2-day Scrum certification class on culture and on building the right environment of psychological safety and Kim Scott's radical candor. And we talk about how to express yourself and how to not be afraid to stand up for what's right, even in the face of nobody else believing it's right, and how to really represent the team and to do those things that are necessary. And I think that if you do those things, that's going to help you. So I don't know that there's an obstacle in a way other than that the obstacle's here, right? The obstacle is getting past the mentality that a project manager can't be a Scrum Master and figuring out how to translate that information into being a good Scrum Master.
For me, it goes back to the spirit. If a hiring manager was saying, so I see on your resume you have your CSM now, and say more about your experience in the role as Scrum Master, and if I have none, then I think about what is in my resume that shows that I've been a mentor and a coach and concerned with people and took something that was maybe not so much and made it better, and position what my skills and strengths are and why I would make a decent Scrum Master. And I think for people that are moving into the role, one of the things I suggest is if you can, maybe try a contract where there's a 90-day try by. Hey, this is my first time really legitimately in this role. So if you don't want to hire me full time just yet, put me on 1099 for a trial period of 90 days. And then if it all works out, hire me at that point. I think there's different ways, absolutely, that you can pitch and sell yourself even without that experience. It's hard, right? You need the experience to get the job. Where do you find that experience? And I think that's what might be behind the question too.
Yeah. And like you said, I love that you brought up the trial by fire, right? You know, give me a chance. Give me 60 days, you know, and that's one of the things that we did with some of the large companies that we work with. So we've been blessed to work with 43 of the Fortune 100 companies. And what I can tell you is when we go into these large companies, one of the things we tell them is, hey, you know, let us come in and work with you for, you know, so many hours, 300 hours. And if you find that you're not getting value, if you haven't saved at least the amount of money that you budgeted for that 300 hours for us, we won't invoice you.
I like that.
I mean, they don't have anything to lose that way, right?
Yeah.
Right. So these large companies are like, yeah, we'll try it out. And then the second they see it's working, that's when we really see some, fast forward results, which is really cool. And that's how companies like the Walt Disney Company or Chase, that's how they select the people that they work with now, because they want somebody who's going to give them a proven track record of success, without having to fork out a whole lot up front and say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. And eventually you get credibility. I would think at the Scrum Master level as well as the coach level. I mean, a lot of my gigs now are word of mouth. And really, when I was moving from developer to Scrum Master, I just said, I'm going to be a Scrum Master because somebody needs to do that job. I guess I was last to touch my nose. But then eventually the the job started to come to me. People would call and say, Aaron, I understand you're pretty good at this. Would you come work for me? So it's a pretty small community, Agile, and just keeping those work the network, keep those contacts open. Eventually, somebody approaches you. I find.
I agree, Aaron. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is, we have an inherent advantage being trainers, that we have a pretty extensive network. So a lot of times I'll tell people to connect with people like us, especially if you're a beginner. And that way you can reach out and say things and know that you have the opportunity to extend to our network. One of the things that I was going to throw out later, that I'll throw out now, is if you have an opportunity to publish yourself, that's another great way. So if you have an opportunity to write on someone's blog or be featured on someone's blog, or if you have an opportunity to appear on an episode like this, where Aaron's been gracious enough to have me, I really appreciate that. These are great opportunities for people who are up and coming in the Agile community to show the rest of the world that they have chops, to get these videos published, to get these blog posts published. It's a great opportunity to be interviewed by a professional and to really have your name out there and establish some credibility that way. Because I think that goes a long way when it comes to an employer.
Sure. So put a comment in this video. And honestly, another shameless plug, tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, I'm going to have a product manager from Chicago on, Lavanya, and she's going to talk about the struggles and bright spots in managing stakeholders while also trying to re-architect a legacy system. And I'm always looking for people that are really in the trenches, in the experience. Lee, I really appreciate this time for us to riff and talk, and that's a big part of this too. But really, to hear the voices from people inside our community, to lend them a voice where I can. So, as well in the comments or whatever else, if you think you'd like to try one of these with me, let me know. We'll do it. No problem. I have no problem with that.
Very cool. And I was about to say, and if you're a fool if you don't let Aaron at that offer. Aaron is just an upstanding guy, and you need to take advantage of that if you can.
Thank you.
So what you got out there? I see some more comments there.
Yeah. Let's see. In case you're wondering, I have Lee on my laptop, and then to be able to hear anything at all, it's actually just dead quiet in the room. I have to put this earpiece in, but then I hear me on a little delay. So when I talk, I tend to take it out. That's, if you notice that, that's what's happening here. But let's see. We have Jonathan. What about product owners? What's the best way to implement product owners in a large company when the teams using Scrum are supporting products they don't own? That's interesting.
Well, that scares me a little. No, I think that, product ownership is probably the hardest job, and it's the one that needs to be addressed first. So one of the things that there's a cool document that I can lead them to that'll help. It's also available for free. Once again, everything that I talk about here, I want to make sure that I emphasize it. I'm only pushing free things. So I'm not trying to get any paid services out of this. I want to promote, Aaron's ability to do this, because I feel like this is a fantastic opportunity for anyone who wants to take advantage of it. The document I was referring to is a document called the Agile 12-Step Program. I'm a psychologist, I can do that. So, but basically what it is it says, if you were to hire a coach to come into your company, what are the first 12 things they would look for? And it starts with things like, do you have a clear vision and strategy? Well, the first one out of the gate is, Uh, does your company or organization understand what Agile is? Why did they choose, what problem are they trying to solve, and why did they choose Agile to solve the problem? Is the first question, right? The second question is, do you have a clear vision and strategy with your leadership team about why Agile is important and why you're using this approach? Then from there, it gets into the third one, has to do with a clear distinction and identification of every Agile role and responsibility, and make sure not that you have every role picked out per se by name, but to make sure you have responsibility coverage across the board, to make sure you have someone making sure that things are getting done. Then from there on, here's where it gets fun. From 4 through 7, they all have to do with product ownership. It's about having a well-organized, well-designed product backlog, having a product owner that understands definition of done and definition of ready. It's about all these different pieces that help you solidify your Agile flow. And I want to emphasize, because a lot of people read that guide and they think, oh, I'm so far off. The guide is not all or nothing. It's not a red pill, blue pill prescriptive approach. It's not spandex, because not everyone looks good in spandex, Aaron. Just throwing it out there. So
believe me.
So
you're not going to see it.
No, but it's one of those approaches where, the way I look at it is, I want people to use this document so that they can ask themselves the question and see how they measure up as an organization. So I have them use the document. It's 12 simple statements. And you ask yourself, is this something that we're doing really well? If it is, it earns a check mark. If it's something we're not doing at all, it gets the X. If it's something that we're doing but we need improvement, it gets a hyphen. Okay. And then I challenge people to go back and mark their calendars 30 days from now, 60 days from now, 90 days from now, and to select 1 or 2 items from there they want to improve, and then work on those items and come back and revisit it in 30 days and say, did we lose traction here to gain traction here? Are we still good here? And then we did this. So that way you kind of have something to benchmark against. And what we found is that that's been a really good way for product owners, or for organizations that don't have strong product ownership, to understand why it's important, because this gauge or this guide just helps give you some framework around why it's important. So that way you can kind of set the benchmark and then go from there.
I see. In Super Mario, you eat these mushrooms and you get super big, right? So what would you consider maybe one of these mushrooms a product owner could eat, become like super big, powerful product owner, maybe based on that assessment or whatever else?
Oh, I've got one. So, so the number one thing that I say for every product owner is, you need to learn how to start focusing on outcome and stop focusing on output. I don't care how many pointless widgets you can create. If they're pointless and they add no value, it's not helping anyone at the end of the day, right? We need to focus on outcome. What can we do to achieve the best outcome? Happy consumers, happy internal and external services, with as little output as possible. We need to reduce the output and increase the power of the outcome. And I think that's the giant mushroom, or that's what you get when you eat the mushroom. When you become giant, you understand the difference. Exactly. Now I understand. Outcome, right?
Yeah.
And it's it's funny that you put it that way, but it's true. I think that when you learn how to focus on outcomes, and when you learn that individuals and interactions treat people with dignity and respect, I often tell people, as a product owner, the one thing that you need to do is you need to lean on the 5 Scrum values pretty hard. For all you Star Wars fans out there, I tell everyone, use the Force.
There you go.
Right?
All 5 of them.
So the Force, focus. Are you focused on doing what's right? That's the F. Openness. There's your O. Are you open and honest in your communication?
Oh my gosh, this is clever. Respect. Yes.
Respect. Are you respectful of all the things you need to do, right? Commitment. Are you meeting all of your commitments? And then I needed an E, extreme courage. So do you behave with extreme courage, and say the things whether they need to be said or not? So if you just use the acronym of the Force, you have the 5 values of Scrum. And if you as a product owner ask yourself, am I living up to those values? Am I applying those in my day-to-day? Am I doing those things that help me stay focused? Am I being open and honest in my communication, both with stakeholders and with the teams? Am I being respectful of teams, their times, and their talents? Am I making and meeting commitments, or is the team constantly falling off because I'm inserting new things? Am I behaving with extreme courage and not afraid to use radical candor and speak up? Those are the things that are going to help you be a powerful product owner. So that's the power of the mushroom.
That's right. Say more about outcome. What is that? I mean, we have to wait for it to come out. but I don't think you're really talking about product increment that gets released
No.
into production. Okay, what's an outcome?
So an outcome could be, so the way that I measure outcome, and this question was asked to me by Heinrich Nieberg. So when we were talking, outcomes measured by measuring impact. What
Mhm.
impact is this going to have on society as a whole? What impact is this going to have on individuals? So having recently worked with Pfizer, what impact is the COVID-19 vaccine going to have on the world?
Mhm.
Right? And why is it important for them to dedicate so much focus to that vaccine? It's just amazing when you see, I've seen both sides. And I guess let me rewind and put it this way.
Okay.
I've been in an organization where I was at a large electronics company. Don't ask, I won't tell you which Samsung I was at. And while I
Okay.
was in the elevator going up to the eighth floor, there was an individual who ran in, and a young lady, and her hair was matted down. It was raining, and she was carrying her shoes in her hand. And I said, "What floor?" And she said, "Eight." I said, "I'm going to eight too. I don't think I've ever met you." She said, "I'm Susie." I said, "Pleasure to meet you, Susie." I said, "What do you do?" She said, "I'm just a developer." I said, "What just a product do you work on?" And she told me. And I said, "Why?" And she says, "Who are you?" Slow elevator. I said, "No, I'm Lee or Susie. We already did that. Why do you work on that product?" And she turned to me, and Aaron, she said, "That's what I get paid to do."
Okay.
And I felt my heart just drop,
Yeah.
right? And it is a rhetorical question, but I ask people all the time, how many of you go to work every day and you're surrounded by people who are just there because it's what they get paid to do?
Mhm.
They have no idea who their target audience is, what problem they're trying to solve, why their product or service is important, what drives market value, what, all these different questions to who, what, where, when, why, and how are totally unanswered.
Mhm.
And when I talk about impact, when I talk about focus on outcome, if you know who your target audience is, if you know what problem you're trying to solve, if you know where it's being applied, if you know why you're building this product or service and what additional value it's going to add and how you're going to impact society as a whole, that means you understand outcome. And I think that if you don't have the who, what, where, when, why, and how, then you don't understand outcome. You don't have outcome. You don't understand impact.
Yeah. I encourage people to put all of those who, what, where, when, why, how on the roadmap as well. At the very least, if you have uh, who, what, why, you have the mother of all user stories and can spawn
Mhm.
product backlog from that. But the rest of them are very helpful too to get to that outcome, which should be turning a frown upside down. Or I guess, the COVID outcome we see in stay-at-home orders, and with the vaccination, the outcome is we can actually leave our homes again. So there is some change of behavior in users in the market, is what I'm understanding from you, is as outcome, and that being so different than output.
Exactly. And to turn a frown upside down, that was a Jeff Patton phrase. So Jeff Patton was the one who made that popular in one of his presentations about story mapping.
I see. I
So
thought it was
so that
Toys R Us.
well, Toys R Us, I'm sure that's where he got it, but but it was
He would.
way back when. I mean, I don't know who said it first, but but it was one of those things where I just remember hearing it from Jeff first, and he always said that when you're doing story mapping, he says the one thing that gets lost in the shuffle is context. Why are
Hmm.
we doing what we're doing? And Mary and Tom Poppendick came up with the concept of an agile press release, where they talked about putting it in more of a press release style format for and leveraging the elevator pitch from Jeffrey Moore for
Yeah.
our target customer who is struggling with this problem. Our product or service is this type of product or service that provides this key benefit or compelling reason to buy it. Unlike our competitors' product or service, ours does this different or better this way.
Yeah.
And I think that if you put that together as a strategy statement that revolves around your vision, like you said, attach it to your roadmap, it just
Mhm.
makes everything make a lot more sense and it makes it flow better that way. So I often tell people, if you don't have that full press release, if you don't
Mhm.
have the headline, the inline, and then that pitch that I just now gave you, then you're lost.
Mhm.
Mark from Shark Tank, so Mark Cuban,
Mhm.
he said that the number one thing that people come to Shark Tank without is that pitch. They miss the pitch completely. He
Mhm.
says they either don't know their numbers or they miss the pitch, and that just sets them all off, and that's why everybody goes out. If
I
you
see.
go in and you have a solid understanding of the pitch and you have your numbers down, you're about 70% likely to get an offer, which is pretty interesting as long as your numbers don't suck.
Yeah. You can make numbers dance though, if you're good at that. In the elevator pitch too, a couple of things there that I like to touch upon when people are crafting it is be careful of just being corporate compliant for one thing and just filling out the template, because so many times I'll cover up that pitch and say, okay, pitch me, and they can't do it. They just stare blankly because they don't have that cheat sheet with all the corporate buzzword compliance. So try to get past that. If you are doing how you're unlike your competitor and your key differentiator and all of that, is you and your competitor might have the same compelling reason to buy, yet there's something that makes you different. And so you have to pull that apart somehow. And your primary competitor is, if you are especially publicly traded and are on a financial call and investors start to ask, how are you doing against company X? That is your primary competition recognized by the market. So be careful of who you internally think is your major competitor. Worry more about how the street or the market sees your competition. And then knowing what your differentiation is, how else are you going to keep it? And that is different usually. For instance, all cell phone companies are apparently that called, although nobody ever, and actually it's like this now, nobody actually uses their phone to call anybody anymore, but that all cell phones have that. What makes one different from the other and be able to keep that difference is what needs to be touched on in that pitch.
I remember specifically a smaller organization. So I was working with a group at 1-800-Contacts before they were bought up by Walmart. And Jonathan Kuhn, the CEO there. And I remember he would walk up to people randomly who worked for the company in a call center environment or in any environment. And he looked so young, you would never recognize him. And he would wear jeans and like a t-shirt or whatever. And he'd just be standing in the elevator with you, whatever, and say, hey, who are you? I don't think I met you. And they'd be like, oh, my name's such and such. He goes, hey, I'm Johnny. He says, what do you do? And they would tell him what they did. And he says, why? And if you answered him with the elevator pitch, he had a pocket full of Amazon gift cards, and he would just let you pick one. And they could be valued anywhere from $20 to $5,000, and it was just, pick one. And you would earn this because you studied and understood why you did what you did. You understood what the mission of 1-800-Contacts was. And you understood what you were trying to do. And it got to the point where every single person who worked in a call center, the janitors, the receptionists, they all knew why they were there and what value they were trying to provide, and who their target customer was and what was going on. And you watched their sales and their business accelerate at such a pace that it got the attention of Walmart, and Walmart ended up buying them out. That's the story I want to tell. That's the kind of thing. I want the Elon Musk SpaceX story. I want the 1-800-Contacts Walmart story. I want those kind of stories to talk about how Agile helps businesses be successful. I want those to be the stories that we can leave as a legacy to show people, hey, this works, right? And it doesn't require a whole lot of overhead.
As part of that fabric that you talked about.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So Aaron, I promised you a gift. So I want to talk about your gift and then my gift to the community real quick, because I know we're running short on time. So while you're checking questions, Aaron, your gift first. I always look for opportunities to find people who are accelerating or finding ways to help people in the Agile community. And one of the big tenets of AgileDad, one of the things that we hold true to our heart, one of our values, one of our core values, is that we serve those who serve others. So we try hard to help people who help others. So I don't know how familiar you are with this concept, but we have something called a challenge coin. This is a challenge coin. So I'll try to get it close enough there so you can see.
Serving those who serve others.
So it's an actual coin. And then on the back, it's got the 5 Scrum values.
Nice. Using the force.
So there you go. So the force is on the back. Wow. And this is an actual coin. And the story about the coin is here. So I'm going to make sure I send one of those out to you, Aaron. So that's going to be my gift to you. No worries.
Thank you.
Because
I don't have anything for you.
No, you deserve it.
Thank you.
I don't drink coffee, but thanks anyway. But you deserve it. You've really come out a long way to do this. And I remember when you first started asking people to do these episodes with you, and it was more of an experiment to try to see how this would impact. Aaron, I sincerely believe that your impact on the Agile community so far has been great, and it's just got light years ahead to go. You have a profound future ahead of you with regard to this. So I can't express how much I appreciate you giving people an opportunity to do this, because this is pretty amazing. And I hope that all of you watching take advantage and look Aaron up later. He's got some real cool classes that he teaches. He's got some stuff going on. this Agile guy's got all kinds of stuff going on. So take a look and see what he's got there. And for those of you who know me well, you can even look on my LinkedIn. It's very rare to hear me endorse someone. That's like a real rarity. It like hardly ever happens. But I've done enough research about this guy that I can say with confidence that if my class isn't available, you'll certainly enjoy his. So so there you
Thanks, man.
have it. No worries. I'd love to do that. Speaking of which, the last thing I wanted to tell the community real quick, and then if you have some other thoughts or closing question, we can go there. If not, I always close with an inspirational thought. But with that being said, for you, I promised a gift for the community. So here it is. Ready? My gift for the community.
Right. Drum roll.
All right. So we're going to kick off 2021 with a little contest, but I am giving all of you a head start. So just because you were here today with Aaron and I'm giving you a head start. Here it is. I am looking for 5 individuals minimum who will write blog posts. So anyone can enter. But I want you to write a blog post about something that you're passionate about, an Agile topic. So pick an Agile topic that you're passionate about. And what we're going to do is we're going to select individuals near the end of January. So we'll give people enough time to get some submissions in. And we are going to select individuals and we are going to award some scholarships to participate in a Scrum Master or Product Owner class or an advanced class of your choice. So this is going to be an awesome opportunity for you to get your name out there. If you were an aspiring Scrum Master, an aspiring Product Owner, or someone who's just looking to gain some traction or gain some credibility in the Agile community, this is a great way for you to do that. And 2, it's also going to give you an opportunity to get some money off because these classes aren't cheap. So it's an opportunity for you to even, as little as free for a set individual, maybe, who knows? We're going to do the best we can to round up some sponsorship, but we're trying to get, some things published, and we want to make sure that you can become a huge part of the Agile community and help us grow. Because I think that's the big thing. I always talk about the concept of grow, setting a goal, analyzing our reality, measuring out our options or opportunities, and then making a determination of what we'll do and sticking to those commitments. And I think that if we use grow, that we can collectively come up with some really good blog posts to help the community and extend some great value to some folks who need it. So there you go.
What a gift, Lee. Thank you. And thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Time's the most incredible thing that we have, Aaron. It's I tell people all the time that, the gift of time is something that you can't get back. And just the fact that you carved out some time to be with me today is impressive as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, likewise. And to everybody who joined and asked questions, people that watch this later, thank you so much. And until next time, really do appreciate it. Let's get this live stream stopped somehow. This is my beginning and ends. I got to work on a little.
All right.
Let's see.
I usually use some music to go out with, so that way it's music until it fades.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah. So what I do is so what I do on Zoom is I put share computer audio, and then I just load it in the background somewhere, and then I'll play like an outro song, an intro and an outro.